I'm originally from Knoxville, and all my family lives in Knoxville. And I went to high school in Rogersville, and then just kind of migrated up toward the north, and I lived in Kingsport. And then I was a waitress most of my adult life before I started in policing. And I enjoyed waitressing. You encounter a lot of people and different in various places and different types of people, kind of like police work, but on a different scale. And then my father was murdered, and it was a traumatic experience for my family and I. And we felt like the criminal justice system did not treat us fairly as victims. We were not offered any services, we were ignored, we weren't part of any decisions that were made, and which ultimately victimizes a victim a second time. And I had decided throughout that experience, if I could make a difference in other victims' lives, that I would do that. And so throughout my conversations with God and deciding what do I want to do with my life and how can I make a most horrible incident, such as my father being murdered, that we could turn that into something positive. And so I decided, let's be a police officer. And I wanted to work with juveniles because it was a juvenile that had murdered my father. So I wanted to work in the juvenile system and work with juveniles. And I put an application in the police department and just got a job as a dispatcher. But to be honest with you, I would have started out as a janitor. And I worked my way up. I was a supervisor over the dispatch. And then I took the police test, but I didn't tell anybody that I took it, because this seemed to be something between God and me and nobody else. And so I took the police test and I scored very high on the test. And Chief Wampler, who was the chief at that time, came to me and said, I had no idea you took the police test, and when do you want to go to the academy? So I went to the academy, and of course my goal was to work with juveniles. And within 2 years of coming out of the academy, I was a detective, and I was the juvenile detective. So it worked out the way God wanted it to work out. And my career has basically been centered around juveniles, around investigating child abuse, investigating elderly abuse, sexual crimes, but my heart has always been with children and juveniles. And then the opportunity came to be promoted. I was promoted to sergeant, but had to go back out on patrol. And then the opportunity came up again to be promoted to lieutenant. And so I was privileged to be promoted as a lieutenant, and actually ended up where I began, in the detective division, supervising child abuse, elderly abuse, sex crimes, those type of crimes, among other crimes. But my heart still lies with investigating child abuse, I think, because that's originally what God wanted me to do. So I think that He has just kept that desire in my heart, and I just enjoy investigating those types of crimes. So now I'm still a lieutenant in the detective division. I enjoy my job. I enjoy my job as much today as the first day I started. And I don't know if there's very many people that can say that about a job where they've been working almost 30 years. I believe I was in my mid-30s when I went to the academy, and there were only 4 girls at the academy. There were not any female police officers at the police department at that time, and I would have been the only one. And it was very stressful for me, because I wanted to do a good job, and I wanted to show others that I could do the job just as well as the guys could do the job. So I worked twice as hard to do what needed to be done. And I never used an excuse that I was a female, or I was tired, or I couldn't lift this because I'm not as strong as you. I just did what needed to be done on the job and pulled my weight. In fact, pulled my weight and some other people's weights, because you just sometimes have to do that to show people that you can do the job that needs to be done. I was treated very fairly. The police department has always treated me fairly, and I have always had the chance to excel in whatever I wanted to work on, and they've given me every chance in the world that anybody would give somebody a chance to succeed. First, I would say to ladies that would want to be police officers, or even think about being police officers, if I can do it, you can do it. Because as I was growing up, no one would have ever thought that I would be a police officer. And if you asked my graduating class, they would have probably put me, the very last person, that would end up being a police officer. So you don't have to be this outstanding physical person. I never was good at basketball or sports or anything like that. You know, I used to run years ago, and I could run 5 miles and for 5 years and never increase on my running time. I just didn't have the body. I didn't have an athletic body, but I had the desire, and that's what makes a difference. And common sense, because a lot of policing is common sense. A lot of life is common sense, and policing is all about dealing with people's lives. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. So when I started at the police department, I was very slim, a lot slimmer than I am now, and you know, not very strong, but you know, they teach you. You are taught how to deal with those things. You have aids on you, such as pepper spray, different tools to use in your tool bag as a police officer. Plus you have your mind, and you have your voice and your attitude, and all those things make a difference. So most females can do this job. All they need is to have a desire to want to do the job and to do it correctly. When I retire, and I am about to retire soon, how do I want people to remember me? This is what I have always said. When my father was murdered, people were lined around the funeral home about 4 times, and it was taking people maybe 3 to 4 hours standing in line. That's how well respected my father was, and he was such a good man. And I said then, if I could only gain half of the respect that my father gained in his life, that I would be so happy. So when I am gone, I want people to look at me positively. I want them to remember me as a champion for victims, a champion for women in law enforcement, a champion for people doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, a champion for people's constitutional rights. I just hope that people remember me in that way. I have always tried to treat people respectfully, and most people have treated me respectfully, and I hope that it's made a difference in somebody's life. So that's what I hope they see me as, is that I made maybe a small difference in their life, or maybe something that I left something in their mind that they can think about even 10 years from now that might make a difference.